Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Down a bit, Brian. All right, welcome to Bedford United Church. I'm Terry Choice, and it is such a joy to be here today. Eloise, darling. And it's so great to see you all. And for those of you that are at home online, welcome to you. I know a lot of people are watching right now. And also, if you want to repeat, you can just go to our website and go to attend, go to online, and click on the service. So it's a great way, and thank you, Paul, for orchestrating all of that. Thanks for Brian being back there, and we have just a few announcements. Okay, this is a show on creativity, and we had to get creative at the very last moment because our pianist couldn't make it as of yesterday. So David Hart is going to not only be doing the reflection, but he's also going to be playing guitar for us today. We have David Gremley on the, what do you call that, David? Huh? Cajon. All right, it's a cajon. And we have all of these wonderful choir women, and Julie stepped in at the last minute, which is wonderful, having Julie McHattie with us today. And woo! And I wore a creative dress. For announcements, Tony and Matt and Ann Laveau Harrop, who is our projectionist, are all off for the month of July. So we have some really phenomenal services lined up. So please come, including our wonderful Gloria Churchill. I believe she's going to be here the third Sunday. And so every Sunday is going to be unique. Yeah. A few other announcements. How many of you know Kay Cantwell? She is just this feisty, wonderful part of our congregation, and she's been with us for many, many, many years, and she just this week sent a lovely letter to our staff thanking them for years and years, including David, of service to her and inspiration. And she's now in Melville Gardens, so she won't be joining us here at church anymore, but her heart is always with us, and she really felt that she wanted to extend that to the whole congregation. Two sad things. Our deep condolences to Holly Connor on the passing of her husband, Harris. And they have been faithful members of our church for many, many years, and also frequent participants of the coffee hour. Harris's service is going to be on July 22nd, that's a Friday, at 2 o'clock here at Bedford United. And also condolences to Doreen Holland, whose sister Rosina Haffenden passed away just yesterday. I'm going to invite Darrell Johnston, the man of many talents, to come up and do our land acknowledgement.
Good morning. So we got the band back together for today's services, right? When David asked me to do the land acknowledgement, I sort of started thinking about my own journey through acceptance. And I was brought up, I call it, in a time of innocent ignorance. I assumed that the First Nations, as they were termed at that time, were given everything for free. They squandered it. And some years ago, I tried to open my mind and my heart and relax my shoulders and understand people of differences. When the Truth and Reconciliation report came out and mentioned genocide, I said, genocide? Really? And around the same time, my daughter Mackenzie gave me a book called All Our Relations. It described what happened to Indigenous people around the world, especially it focused on Canada, and it was heart-wrenching to read. And then I read the definition of genocide by the UN. In the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. a couple other points, but the one thing it says, deliberately inflicting on the group's conditions of life calculated to bring around physical or mental destruction, forcibly transferring children from one group to another. So we arrived in this country, Turtle Island as they call it, North America. We took the land as we saw it was ours for the taking. We saw the First Nations people as needing to assimilate to a more civilized way of being, and we set out to colonize them, bringing them into our world. We relegated them to reserves and gave them allowances, which further reduced their sense of being. And then, under the guidance of the government, the church, and society as a whole, we backed open trucks up and loaded their children up and took them away, some never to be seen again. We broke them. So with all of this history, some of us choose to live in that disgrace of our history, and some Indigenous people are still so angry they're not ready to let it go. But I find that most people that I talk to in the Indigenous community, they want to know that we're sincerely sorry for what happened. And they can sense sincerity. A few months ago, Elder Joe asked David and I to look at a grant proposal he had written. He said, I suffer with some grammatical stuff. So we, mostly David, went out and really rewrote the whole thing and did a great job, sent it off to Joe and waited for the thank yous and the accolades. And then I talked to him. He said, I appreciate what you did, but you have to see things through my eyes. I see things differently than you. And for me, it was one of those aha moments. And we must work through the 94 recommendations for the Truth and Reconciliation Report. Last night I happened to be channel surfing and I came across a program of the Mi'kmaq in New Brunswick. And they mentioned that the translation for reconciliation in their language is a verb, reconciliation, do things. Senator Stan Kuchar did a series on cultural and race relations. He talked about allyship. He said it's important to avoid performative allyship, like attending an event or occasional visits to Elder Joe Michaels just to look good. He said that we must practice authentic allyship, which can be sensed. When we are involved, we must be engaged and sincere. I struggle with my own intentions around this regard, but always lurking in the back of my mind is all are welcome all the time. If we're going to say it every Sunday, then we must act through it each week. We have a great opportunity in Canada of moving forward and really healing a lot of the pain that has been for centuries and as recent as the 50s, and I think the last one was the residential school closed in the 90s. But we have an opportunity to move forward and really build new relationships and be proud of Canada, of what we're capable of doing. And as my middle daughter Shannon says, always do your best work. Namaste.
God is here all the time. And all are welcome all the time. And let the music begin.
'88 in more voices, Over My Head. No. I'm not blocking you.
And Julie, so this is an impromptu creative thing, and we want you moving, and we want you grooving, and we want you clapping. Is that right?
We do indeed.
Absolutely.
All at the same
All
time.
at the same time. Oh, hang on one second. So, you got the song?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You see some books open. We're like, we know it.
Over my head,
I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music choir. We are moving on to number 92 in More Voices. We'll give you some time. It's called Like a Rock. And again, you've got some choreo. Now you've proven yourselves. We believe in you.
And I think they know that.
I actually think you know the choreo better than I do. So I'll watch you, you watch me, we'll figure it out together.
Playing guitar and doing choreo.
Exactly. David amazingly can play the guitar and dance at the same time.
Like a rock, God is under our feet. Like a starry night sky, God is over our head. Like the sun on the horizon, God is ever before. Like the river runs to ocean, our home is in God evermore. Like a rock, God is under our feet. Like the starry night sky, God is over our head. Like the sun on the horizon, God is ever before. Like the river runs to ocean, our home is in God evermore.
One more time.
Like a rock, God is under our feet. Like the starry night sky, God is over our head. Like the sun on the horizon, God is ever before. Like a river runs to ocean, our home is in God evermore.
Well done. This little line of mine you don't have in your book. I don't think you need it. I think we'll remember it from the childhood. And I'll help you out with the other verses.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine all the time. Let it shine.
Won't let nobody blow it out.
Won't let nobody blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Won't let nobody blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Won't let nobody blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine all the time. Let it shine.
Let it shine all around the world.
Let it shine all around the world. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine all around the world. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine all around the world. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
Gonna be beautiful, you'll see.
Gonna be beautiful, you'll see. I'm gonna let it shine. Gonna be beautiful, you'll see. I'm gonna let it shine. Gonna be beautiful, you'll see. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine all the time. Let it shine.
Let it shine for God's glory.
Let it shine for God's glory. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine for God's glory. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine for God's glory. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine all the time. Let it shine. This little light of mine. Last time. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine all the time. Let it shine.
Shout out to Harrison's perfect rhythm. Yes, thank you for keeping time, Harrison.
So the woman who was to do the psalm reading obviously is not here today, so I get to do it, something else. So please join me in listening for how the Spirit might be speaking through us, through our sacred source texts. Today, we're going to be reading from selected verses from Psalm 139. The psalmist is often known to marvel over God's wonderful works in creation. But in today's selection, the psalmist marvels over God's wondrous creation of the human being. Contemporary science has come to reveal ever more deeply what an amazing creation the human being is. The brain itself is considered to be the most intricate and complex reality known to humankind. Despite our very real and numerous moral and spiritual failures as a species, we are a remarkable creation indeed. Let us listen to the words of the psalmist. Yahweh, you searched me, and you know me. You know if I am standing or sitting or dancing. You read my thoughts from far away. Whether I walk or lie down, you are watching. You are intimate with all of my ways. A word is not even on my tongue, Yahweh, before you know what it is. You hem me in, before and behind, shielding me with your hand. You created my inmost being and stitched me together in my mother's womb. For all these mysteries, I thank you. For the wonder of myself, for the wonder of your works, my soul knows it well. My frame was not hidden from you while I was being made in that secret place. Your eyes saw my body even then. How precious your thoughts are to me, O God. How impossible to number them. I could no more count them than I could count the grains of sand. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, a height my mind cannot reach. May the Spirit bless us with wisdom and understanding from this reading.
And thank you, Terry, so much for sharing that reading with us. Yeah, it's quite a morning. It's great to be back with you again. It's great to see all of you. I too want to extend a really, really warm word of welcome to anyone who might be visiting with us on this Canada Day weekend. And if you're out there watching online, hope that if you have company from afar, hope you're having a wonderful weekend as well. Friday was a glorious day, wasn't it? So it was a beautiful day for everybody to be out. It was such a great joy to see everybody out and about, and the kids were out, and everybody's sharing community once again. And that's what this is all about too, right? This BUC place is just a wonderful, blessed community, and it's gone through some difficult times, as have all communities over the last couple of years. And our staff, we've got this awesome staff team here, right? We've got Matt and Katie and Paige and Jen and Brian and Andrea over there who's chairing council. They've done just, I think, an awesome job carrying us all through what's been a difficult couple of years. I think we should give them a big hand, even if they're not here. They're just absolutely fabulous. Yeah. So a few of the staff are taking a little bit of a breather right now. Reverend Matt is on vacation for the month, and so it's a real pleasure for me to be able to fill in and to provide a little support while he's getting a much-needed rest. Mind you, all that being said and done, he did a very naughty thing. He is a rather naughty fellow, that Reverend Matt, as some of you might know, right? So this is what he did, right? He went and decided he was going to create a sermon series, right? He decided, now, never in my some 35 years have I ever created a sermon series and then never completed it, right? But Reverend Matt decided he was going to create a sermon series, and then he thought he was being very clever and very intelligent. He thought, I'll kick it off, but then I don't have to do it all. I'll just let the people who are filling in for me for the month fill it in. And because the sermon series deals with art and creativity and religion and spirituality, I bet he's having a giggle here today, being very smug, thinking, this was a really creative thing I did. I started off this series on creativity, and now I'm going to see how these next 4 people fill out that theme for me. Very clever, actually having other people do your work, right? Thank you, Matt, wherever you are. Anyways, it is this kind of series dealing with art, and I don't even know. He didn't give us a whole lot of instruction around what to do with this thing, right? But it has to do with art and creativity and religion and spirit. And when I got thinking about that theme, all of a sudden, it was a really weird thing. This memory came back to me. It's like from 40 years ago. Yeah. This memory came back to me when I was a student doing my Master of Arts degree in English Literature at the University of Windsor in Windsor, Ontario, many, many years ago. And in the Master's program for English Literature, there were 2 streams. There was the academic stream of literary analysis and research, which is the stream that I was in. I was thinking at the time I might end up doing a PhD in English literature or something or other, become a university professor like Tug there. But I had a lot more fun in my career, actually. But for me, not for Tug. Tug had a lot of fun in his career. But so I was in the more academic stream, but there was also a creative writing stream. And I remember one day I was chatting with a friend who I'd gotten to know in the courses. And his name was Claude, actually, a French name, but he was doing a creative writing course in English literature. And we got chatting one day about art and creativity. And I remember saying to him, and I don't know where this thought came from. I don't know, it just sort of emerged. Obviously, it had been there somewhere in the subconscious. I said, Claude, I think that the most artistic endeavor in our lives, the most creative thing we can do with our lives is what we do with ourselves, is how we live our actual lives. And the reason the thought stayed with me is he had always thought of art in terms of his program, right? In terms he wanted to become a writer, and he wanted to make a living doing that. So he always thought of art in terms of the formal arts. He had never thought about that. And I remember it striking him, and he thought that was such a, wow, you really think so, that art is really what we do with our lives. You see, I think if I were to ask you, what comes to mind when we say the word art? I suspect that most people, when you talk about art or the arts, you would probably think, oh, that means painting or music or writing or theater or something along those lines. You might not necessarily associate art and the whole creative endeavor with what you actually do with your own life. But if you think about how the Bible opens, we often think about God in terms of love. But how does the Christian Judeo-Scripture open? It opens with a supremely artistic and creative act. It's God, Yahweh, creating the universe, right? And when God creates the universe, it starts out with God starting with everything from chaos and nothingness, and then the land emerges out of the sea, and then the trees and the animals. And what's the last thing that God creates, according to the story? Human beings. And God says, when God creates human beings, I have created human beings in my own likeness, in my own image. And I often think that what the story is referring to and what God is referring to in the story is that the creative impulse, the impulse to create, is something that is inherent within the very source of the universe itself. And that the most true thing we know about God is that God is a creative power, and that God likes to create. And God has created the universe, and God has created life, including us. And you know, the psalmist in that psalm that Terry read for us earlier, it's interesting, the psalmists generally, when they're in their enraptured kind of praise mode and they're praising God, they're generally praising God for the universe, they're praising God for the earth, they're praising God for the animals on the land, and they're praising God for the fish in the ocean. But in this particular psalm, what does the psalmist says? And Yahweh, how you have made me, you've made me a wondrous creation. I am this amazing creation that you knit together in my mother's womb. And the psalmist is just in awe in front of the majesty of God's creative impulse within himself. So the point I want to make with you today, it's a simple one. It's that conviction I've carried forward through all my life, I think, and it started unconsciously, but it's been there, is that obviously people who are artists, who create music and who do writing and who are painters and who might be dramatists and so on, that urge to create arises out of something deep within them that has been planted there by God, and that is this creative impulse, this creative spirit. And I truly, deeply believe that the most wonderful canvas on which you can paint, the most wonderful score that you can create with music, or the most wonderful script that you can write is the script of your own life. Right? It's the script of your own life. We are all called to be artists and creators with our own lives. So I think we often don't think about that. We think only art is, the professional artists. But no, it's us. So what I'm going to ask you to do for a minute, because a lot of people don't think about this, I'm going to ask you to turn to one another and do this with some care and consideration. Just be aware of this whole COVID thing. We're still a little bit antsy about that. If you're antsy about that, just take a little bit of distance. But I'm going to invite you to take, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. But first I want you to think about can you think of a really wonderfully creative moment from your own life? Now, it may have been a moment that involved the more formal arts, painting or music or writing or something, but maybe it was rearranging the furniture in your house, right? Maybe it was solving a problem at work, right? Maybe it was some family situation that you had to deal with that was difficult. I want you to think about a moment in which you felt, I was really creative. That was really good. That came out of someplace deep. And then share that with one another. Okay? Take 3 or 4 minutes. Talk. This is good, right? This is good. This is all part of building our community as well. And for those of you out in digital world, if you have people around you, do that there as well, or think about that issue as well, okay? Okay, I'm going to have you come back. So part of what I'm interested in, and I'm intrigued to have you reflect on, and you can reflect on this a little bit later, is what was it about that particular moment or experience that enabled you to be so creative? I can't count the numbers of times I have heard people to say to me over the years, I couldn't do that. I'm not a very creative person. Have you heard that comment? Yeah. I can't do that. I'm not a very creative person. I couldn't possibly do that. Andrea, I'm thinking about you. You stepped into our chairing council thinking, oh my God. And then she said, oh, I think I can do this. God has built a spark of creativity into each of us. We are created in the image of God. And so who are we to say, I can't do that? You've got the power and the source and the majesty and the creativity at the heart of the universe living inside of you. Who are you to say, I can't do something just because of my own little anxiety or fear? But you see, our society has held up what I call a trifecta of three values that have traditionally been so important in our culture throughout time. Let me name for you what that trifecta of three values is. It's security, conformity, and stability. It's the belief that we need to have security and conformity to ensure stability. And in the drive to emphasize those three values, we shortchange the creative human need for freedom and creativity. So you think about our schools. I remember there was a woman who once told me that her child came home from school and the child had done some drawing in which she had painted a bunch of trees and they were all purple. And the teacher went up to the child and said, no, that's not the proper way to do that. The trees are supposed to be green. And you think about, I think the educational system has changed a lot, but you think about originally, how are kids, they're in school and they're lined up in little rows, lined up right behind each other, and they're taught to behave and they're taught to conform, right? Because we need their conformity and behavior in order to ensure stability and security in the classroom. I've told somebody this story, and I'll leave names out, but the church does this too. It's not just the education system, right? The church is to blame for this too. I remember over the years I was on occasion invited to preach at another church, and this church was a little bit more of a dogmatic church, a little more orthodox, right? And there were certain things you had to believe to be a proper Christian and to go to heaven, right? And you know me, or those of you who do know me, when I would go and preach there, I'd always like to kind of shake things up a little bit, right? And my colleague, the minister at the church, and he was a good friend, and we really liked each other, but he came to me one day and he said, David, you really need to tone it down a little bit when you come to our church, you know, you're going to get me in trouble. And he said, I know you're a free thinker, he said, but when you come to our church, you know, you got to toe the line a little bit. And I said to him, I said, is there any other kind of thinker but a free thinker? Right? So church is also taught conformity, follow the rules, believe the proper things, and all shall be well, and you'll get, you know, whatever, you know. I like the story I read about Google some time ago, and they say that, I don't know if they still do this, but at the time the article said that what Google does is that they give their engineers every Friday afternoon off. And they tell them, just go and play. You don't have to work on anything. Just go and doodle and play and do what you feel like doing. All right? Because Google recognizes that to be successful, which can also contribute towards stability in some ways, they also had to encourage that other side from this trifecta of three values. They had to encourage the creativity and freedom. that encouraging the creativity and freedom of their engineers and designers, that would actually ensure better health for the company in the long term. So, stability is important, and security is important, but we got to recognize that conformity that tries to nurture those values, it's often at the cost of expressing the creativity and the freedom that's at the heart of who we are. And because we're created in the image of God, if we don't find our creative spark within us, if we don't find that ability within us, and it doesn't have to make you a wonderful writer, it doesn't have to make you a wonderful musician. I think of myself as a painter. I'd be, like a lost. When I look at Natalie Moyes, right? She's this beautiful, beautiful artist, but I think, Natalie, I could never do that. I say that to her, and she says, "Oh, no, David, I could probably teach you how to do some of that, right?" And she's right, she probably could. Our fear and our enculturation towards conformity and security often is a block that prevents us from what do we need to do to be creative? And so I bring back to your conversation, what was it about those moments that made you? Yeah, openness. There's a kind of an openness to something new happening. Probably a sense of playfulness too, right? Probably you're contacting some playful side of yourself. I heard some of that going on back here. And a willingness to risk, to step out from the way you've always done things, to recognize that maybe I could try something different. And then you start to capture that side, and you start to capture a little bit of the part of the image of God that's structured within you. There's a line I read a few years back, and it struck me at the time. It was very profound. It was some kind of scholarly article. And the writer was saying, when most people think back on their life, they don't have regrets for changes or things they've done that they weren't sure about, and sometimes those changes didn't work out, and they weren't successful. Sometimes they were, but sometimes they weren't. They usually don't have regrets about the things that they did. Rather, they have regrets about the things they didn't do. So Matt, wherever you are, here's my little contribution to the cause today. I want to encourage all of you today. I'm not saying give up stability and give up security and all those things totally. Those are important in our lives. But what I'm encouraging you to do today is over this next month, I would encourage you to think about, is there something that you've always thought you'd like to do, but you've never done because you were just like, I don't think. Maybe I'll look stupid if I do that. Maybe people will think I'm foolish, or I'm not good enough, or any of those kinds of things. No. Over the next month, think about a little something. And it doesn't have to be a big deal, but a little something that's different for you. Take on something it might be a volunteer position, it might be a new hobby, it might be to go to some place that you've never been, it might be to try a different line with your intimate partner. Never know, in terms of what might bring you closer. Try something different and see how that feels. Because Danielle's laughing at me. Because I'm sure if you do, I know that when we're in touch with that creative, impulsive spirit within us, ultimately we are happier, more peaceful, and more fulfilled the way God intends us to be. And at the end of the month, I want you all to write a letter to Matt and to tell him what David had instructed you to do, and that this is what you've done, and that next time he needs to finish his full-part series if he doesn't want that kind of feedback, okay? The Spirit in me honors the Spirit in all of you. Namaste. Amen.
Thank you, David. I don't know if there was a creative way to do offering, but maybe Gloria and Len can think of a way. So this is part of getting back to normalcy, folks. We have our offering plate again, and many of you I know are on par, which at this church means that it comes out of your bank account every month, and we're really appreciative of that. So if you are on par, just wave your hand over the offering plate. And these dynamic, phenomenal women had no idea what they were going to do when they came up here and sat down this morning. And so all of the music has been a collaborative effort, very, very creative between David and David and these wonderful women and Julie. Yeah. And so they have an offering song as well.
Beautiful Gaia, oh Gaia, calling us home. Oh, beautiful Gaia, calling us on. Oh, beautiful Gaia, oh Gaia, calling us home. Oh, beautiful Gaia, calling us on. Oh, beautiful Gaia, oh Gaia, calling us home. Oh, beautiful Gaia, calling us on.
That's a really significant song for me because, to tell you the truth, I would not be here at this moment if it wasn't for Carolyn McDade, who wrote that song. She transformed my life. Your gifts of time and money and talents are truly appreciated by this church and this community. There are many ways that we can creatively give of ourselves and be of service to others.
Born in human likeness, found in human form, Jesus, God is with us. We proclaim your glory. Born in human likeness, found in human form, Jesus, God is with us. We proclaim your glory.
Perhaps the most creative thing we can do is to live our lives with intention. Do you have a passion, a talent, a calling, or a deep love that you want to make a big part of your life, but you don't know how? then you need to become creative, to incorporate what you want to do and who you want to be into your life. It will mean making innovative changes in how you use your time, your resources, your money, your energy, your intelligence, and your spiritual connection. With divine guidance, you can create a life that has meaning and purpose. Let us pray. Lord, we come to you collectively to open our hearts and minds to our possibilities. May we have guidance to live more gently and lightly on this fragile earth, knowing that what we do affects the present and the future. Treat all people with more kindness and understanding. Advocate for social justice and equality for all people. Ensure that animals of every kind be treated humanely. May we have guidance to create music, art, theater, dance, literature, and all forms of creative expression. Invent ways to live simply and harmoniously. Ensure that all people are fed, housed, educated, and provided good health care. May I take care of my own emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. Create a safe, comfortable, and peaceful home for myself and my family. Live my values at work, at home, and in the community. We pray, remembering Jesus, who lived intentionally, lovingly, and creatively. Amen.
Born in human likeness, found in human form, trees, humans, goddess, human forms. We proclaim your glories. Born in human likeness, found in human form, trees, humans, goddess, human forms. We proclaim God is with us. We proclaim your found in human form. Joining humans likeness, found in human forms. We proclaim God is with us. We proclaim your glory.
Deep breath. Thank you. And thank each of you for being with us today. Thanks to the folks out back. And I understand Nathan is in training to be a tech, so hey, I'm happy about that. Hey, Paul. Yeah. I hope that this service has inspired you to add some innovation and creativity into your life. Our worship is ending, but our service to others goes on every day. Bless you all. And we have one more little final song for leaving. And I hope to see you all next week for another creative surprise service.
Please rise as you are able and grab those books again. We're going to be singing number 106, I Am the Dreams. It's 106.
Probably check before I announce it.
I am the dream.
I am the dream, and you the dreamer. I am the song, and you are the rhyme. You are the tune sung in every silence. You are the now in the endless stream of time. I am the bell, and you the silence. You are the yearning and cannot curtail. I am the blessed, and you the blessing. You are the wild in which I lose my trail. You are the word, and I the echo.